And welcome back to the Aussie Grid Girl podcast. It is the third episode. I think we're up to the third episode, yeah, because we did the live one the first time, then did the second one with Lucy. Welcome to the third episode of the Aussie Grid Girl podcast. My deepest apologies for the fact that it has been way too long since I recorded a video. For the last month and a half, I have been working very, very hard on a event that I just launched for my real job. Well, not for my real job, my job that pays the bills. And I just haven't had enough time to hang out with you guys, record a podcast, say hi, and catch up on everything that's been going on in the F1 world. So if you missed it, the first episode we talked about, I did it live over on my Twitch channel. You guys will be able to find all the links below to all my socials. So we did the first episode I did live on my Twitch channel, and we did a little bit of a comparison of the couple of F1 car reveals that had been done. We talked about Lewis to Ferrari, which I'm not going to talk about again until silly season comes around, I promise. Except I'm probably going to mention it a couple times in this video just because Carlos has been having a really good season so far. And then the second episode of the podcast, it wasn't an audio version, so hello to my audio listeners. I'm so sorry that you have been missing out on episodes. It's been really, really busy, and the last episode I did was about an hour and a half long because me and the lovely Lucy compared all of last year's liveries and this year's liveries and made some predictions about the season this year. Which we're going to revisit that probably about mid-season. Lucy and I are going to look back at our predictions and see if there's anything we want to change. And then at the end of the year, we will probably talk about those predictions again. If you guys can see, I am wearing a lovely Red Bull Racing hat today. The Miami hat from last year. I think it was from last year. Because I was tossing up between this hat and the Japan hat from last year. When the Grand Prix was in Melbourne, which I went to. If you guys follow me on TikTok, you would have seen some little bits and pieces. I was going to film a vlog, and then I got really distracted and had a really good time instead and didn't get a chance to film much, so I apologize for that. I promise next year I will do better. You can see this lovely hat that I got. It's probably not going to stay on for the whole video. It is going to stay on for now because I have the worst hair going on. You can kind of see it under this hat. It's fine. Also, I don't think I was blonde last time I did a video, so look, I'm blonde. Hey guys. Welcome to the blonde hair era of me. I was blonde last year, and then I dyed it red when Charles won a race, and then I ended up going back to blonde recently, although you can kind of see there is some red going on in my hair that is not just a reflection from my hat. A friend of mine also pointed out to me the other day, sorry, I'm talking really fast. A friend of mine pointed out to me the other day that my eyeshadow that I was wearing looked really blue. I think it's just the reflection of my glasses because they're green and I have hazel eyes. I don't know. It's a whole thing. Dad's messaging me on Facebook. Hi, Dad. I promise I will try not to swear. I'll try. I can't promise anything, but I'll try. But anyway, let's get into this, shall we? So we have had 4 races so far this season. We have had Bahrain, Jeddah, Melbourne, and what happened to my accent there? Melbourne and Japan so far. Japan happened last weekend. We're almost at the weekend again. Oh my god. And then China is next weekend. But I'm going to try and record an episode after China so we don't have to do this where we talk about 4 races in one episode. If you guys interact with this podcast, either if you listen to me on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, so Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all the fun podcast sites. Hey guys, how you doing? Or if you are watching on my YouTube channel, hey. Or I don't know how else you would see my podcast. Maybe I'm gonna post part of it on my TikTok, or you follow me on TikTok, so you'll see it there. Well, you won't see it there because I don't post the podcast on Twitter. On TikTok. Oh my god, I cannot speak today. So this is going to go very interestingly. I'm probably going to get very tongue-tied. My camera is precariously balanced on like a box of coffee sachets and a box of a camera, so let's see how we go with that. I'm using a different program to record this time, so hopefully that goes well too. But yeah, let's get into this. So first race of the season was Bahrain. We weren't really kind of sure. I feel like we weren't sure how it was going to go, but I feel like we probably were sure how it was going to go because it was kind of obvious that Red Bull were holding back at testing, which is fair enough. They don't want to give anything away. Red Bull have always been that way. And then obviously like with the new design of the car this year, with the aero, and the little bit in the nose where you can like interchange it between if you need more air or less air. We kind of didn't get a full showing of their capabilities during testing. So it was always going to be a case of like, are they sandbagging a little bit in testing? Is this actually what the car is going to look like? Etc., etc. And then we had the first race of the season, and Max did a typical Max and beat his teammate by 22.5 seconds, as you do. It was closer between P2 and P3, so it ended a little bit differently, but not much from quali. So Max was on pole, Charles was P2, George was P3, Carlos P4, and Checo was P5. And then it ended with Max, Checo, Carlos P3, Charles P4, George P5, and Lando P6. So it was a little bit of a shake-up. I am astounded that Charles managed to finish P4 when his brakes weren't working the majority of the race. He started off in P2, and it was just obvious that it was not, he wasn't going to stay there, because it just, you could kind of see from the first couple of laps that the car wasn't quite dialed in properly. And as we found out after the race, he was having brake issues the entire time. So the fact that he still managed to finish P4 and was only about 14 seconds behind his teammate, fair enough. It was quite close between P5 and P6. Lando was only like a second and 3/4, almost 2 seconds, just under 2 seconds behind George in P5. But I was just really, really glad to see the fact that the McLaren isn't a piece of crap this year. It actually looked good from the get-go and has continued to look good. And if we're going to talk about people being absolutely amazing in Bahrain, we cannot not talk about Kevin Magnussen in Bahrain, because he put on an absolute masterclass of working with your teammate and just doing fantastic. Checo and Nico did quite well together to kind of work together. And they're like, I feel like people always underestimate Haas, and they underestimate Nico and Kevin just because they've got a fair bit of experience under their belts, but not quite a lot of success. It's probably got a lot to do with the teams that they're driving for. Daniel did put the Renault on the podium a couple of times when he and Nico were teammates, but it's never kind of been there available for them to be getting podiums. Although K-Mag obviously had an amazing debut. I think he was driving for McLaren back then, and was teammates with Jenson Button. Fun fact if you didn't know that already. And we also can't talk about Bahrain and not talk about the whole Daniel Ricciardo Yuki Tsunoda thing. Now, from what I understand, and for me watching the race, I had to watch it back because it was on at 4 a.m. Melbourne time, so I fell asleep. Second of all, it was my best friend's bachelorette weekend, so I had a few beverages, so staying awake was never going to happen. But as I told her, this is how much I love you, that I missed the first race of the season for you because I love you. So I love you, bestie. Can't wait to watch you walk down the aisle in a few weeks. It's going to be an amazing day. But yeah, we have to have a discussion about Yuki and Daniel, because Daniel was behind Yuki, has spent a lot of this season behind Yuki, but I'm not going to talk about that just yet. He was behind Yuki, and he was on fresher tyres, so the team orders came through for Yuki to let Daniel go through. Now, from my understanding of the situation, it took 2 laps, maybe almost 3 laps, before Yuki let Daniel through. Now, if Yuki had have let Daniel through when he was told to let him through, Daniel quite possibly could have got K-Mag, probably would have got Zhou as well. Don't know if he would have made it up to P10, but we're never going to know because that whole thing happened. And it was just, Yuki obviously wasn't, like, no one's ever going to be happy with team orders and being told to switch with your teammate Don't even get me started about Multi 21. Let's just not talk about it because I will cry. She says wearing a Red Bull hat. I'm a Mark Webber fan. I'm a Sebastian Vettel fan. Wasn't at the time, but we're not going to talk about that. Maybe I will do an episode during the summer break, and I can talk you guys through my Formula One journey and who the drivers that I used to support and the drivers that I never used to like. Not gonna lie, I was not Seb's biggest fan back in the day, but it's because Mark Webber's Australian, or as Lando Norris would say, Mark Webber. Me and my friend Sasha have a whole joke about that. We walked around the whole day at the Melbourne Grand Prix going, Mark Webber, Mark Webber. But we're not going to talk about that. Shout out to you, Sash. I'm going to try and get her on an episode. We were going to record after the Melbourne Grand Prix, and we were both just so tired. Like, it was a big week for us, so we didn't actually get around to... Don't mind me yawning. It's like nearly 10 o'clock at night here, and it's been a really long day. So... Obviously, you don't want Team Waters interfering in a race, and Yuki was told to let Daniel by. Took too long to do it, so Daniel's tyres were already gone by then. He had new softs, but it was too late by the time he got past Yuki. He was never going to catch K-Mag, and he was never going to catch Guan Yu. But if they had have worked together as a team better, might have ended differently, but we're never going to know. But if you watch the race... And it's probably too late to be talking about this now because it was so long ago. But Yuki dive bombing into Daniel was just... It was so stupid. Like, regardless of what happened, it was just stupid behavior. And it kind of showed Yuki as the hothead that he is. Which, look, I'm not blaming the guy, not having a go at him whatsoever at all. I love Yuki. I think he has matured so much as a driver and has just gotten better as a driver. But just the way that he kind of behaved, it was just really unprofessional, okay? Like, yeah, you don't want to be told to let your teammate by, and then you don't want to not get swapped back with your teammate, because then there's that whole thing of like, oh, who outperformed who? Like, oh, okay, so in 5 races, Daniel finished ahead of Yuki, but in the rest of the races, Yuki finished ahead of Daniel, etc., etc., because that's just the way the business is. But what people seem to forget to understand is that it's a team sport. And sometimes in a team, you're going to get told shit that you don't want to hear. But guess what? You have to do it because that's just how it works. I know I swore, Dad. I'm sorry. But yeah, it just happens. And the other thing that we learnt as a lesson from the Grand Prix in Bahrain... Sorry, yawns. That we learnt from Bahrain... was that the Alpines are absolute pieces of rubbish out on the track. Look, I hope they get some updates during the season and the cars get better, but they're just not good. They're just not good. And I will go more into detail about this when I talk about the Melbourne Grand Prix, but they're just not, okay? Like, they're just not. And it's nothing against Pierre. It is nothing against Esteban. I love Pierre. I have always loved Pierre. I was one of his biggest supporters during his AlphaTauri run and was so happy when he got on the podium and was just like, yeah, Pierre, fuck yeah. Did it twice last season, I think. Maybe twice, definitely did it once. And it was definitely twice. He was on the podium in Spa and he was on the podium in Zandvoort, I think. I could be wrong. I think I'm right. Could be wrong. I don't know. But yeah, nothing against either Pierre or Esteban, but the Alpine is a piece of crap. I think Fernando did well getting out when he did. Oscar obviously did incredibly well getting out when he did. Let's not even talk about that tweet. That tweet pops up every now and then on my PC because it's one of my, like, it's in my photos and just my background, my wallpapers on my computer literally just like cycle through. So that tweet appears every now and then, and every time it comes up, I can't help but laugh. But yeah, Bahrain was, you know, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't a great Grand Prix. It wasn't a shit Grand Prix. I think the thing that we're learning from this year is that everybody is a lot closer to Red Bull this year than they were last year. I think it's going to be a real competition between Carlos, Charles, and Max and Checo this year. I really think Ferrari are bringing the fight. They would be a little bit further in the points as well. Ferrari would have more constructors' points. And Carlos would have more drivers' points if he didn't have to have his appendix out in Jeddah. But speaking of Jeddah, that was the second race of the season, and it was really, really interesting, to say the least, because we had the thing of Carlos not being able to race and having his appendix out. The F2s and the F3s did Bahrain, and they did Jeddah, and they did Melbourne. They didn't do Japan. I think they're doing China. I was looking at Paul Aaron and Dennis Hauger's Instagram stories before. Can't remember if they mentioned anything, but I think they're doing China. It's also the first sprint race in China, so we're definitely going to have a lot to talk about next week after the race. But we had pretty much the same. It was the Red Bulls and the Ferraris that were in the points. It was Max, Checo, and Charles. I don't remember how it started. Max, Charles, Checo was how we started. And we can't talk about we can't talk about Jeddah and not mention a 18-year-old child. This 18-year-old kid named Oliver Bateman, who filled in at Ferrari last minute for Carlos. And look, I was so happy for Ollie. Like, he deserves this opportunity so much. But there was also this tiny part of me that was like, God, I wish Arto was there. Because Arthur Leclerc is also a reserve driver for Ferrari now. So could you imagine if Ferrari and Jeddah was Team Leclerc? Like, how would they even have done that on the timing screen? Like, would it be CLC and then ALC? I don't know. I would love to see Charles and Arthur on the same track one day. I think it could potentially happen. Probably won't. But I would be really entertained to see that. But yeah, we can't talk about Jeddah and not talk about Ollie. He did a freaking amazing job in that Ferrari. I'm pretty sure he started P11. Yeah, literally like just missed out on Q3 by about 500th of a second behind Lance Stroll in the Aston. And then he actually he was P7. So hell yeah, Ollie Behrman. He outperformed the McLaren, he outperformed Lewis Hamilton, he outperformed Nico Hulkenberg, and everybody else that finished behind him. So Ollie on his debut and look, a lot of people are saying that it's the best performance by a rookie in an F1 car, but everybody else in their rookie seasons, the cars that they started out in, it's not even his rookie season, it's just a race that he filled in for, weren't driving a Ferrari. So I think that has to be taken into account when you talk about that. However, it is genuinely amazing the fact that Ollie finished in the points in his first race. Fuck yeah, Ollie. Sorry, Dad. But he outperformed Lando, Lewis, Nico, Alex, K-Mag, Esty, Logan, Yuki, Daniel, Valtteri, Joe, Lance, and Pierre. We had DNFs from Pierre and Lance in Jeddah. If everybody remembers the radio message from Jeddah about Lance, was his engineer asking him if he could bring the car back, and he's like, no, I'm in the fucking wall. So poor Lance. I think Pierre did like one lap as well before they had to retire the car. So yeah, Alpine are really, they're really not having a good time. I was just saying that Alpine are having a not really good time this year. They're not having about as time as Williams, but maybe we shouldn't talk about that. But we're going to have to. But anyway, Jeddah was, again, it was interesting. Checo was only 13 seconds behind Max, and Charles was 18 seconds behind. So it is kind of a testament to how much better Checo has gotten this year in two races as well. And also how close the Ferraris are. And how close the McLarens are as well. Oscar was P4. I believe, so Lando was on an alternate tyre strategy for this race. He was leading for a really long time, and I do say that Ollie outperformed him. I'm not actually going to say that. I'm going to take that back. Ollie didn't necessarily outperform Lando. He just had a better tyre strategy. But I am not diminishing what Ollie did in that race. He did amazing. I'm going to take this off while I talk about Melbourne because my head's starting to get really warm. And also Melbourne wasn't great
for the Red Bulls, as we know. So we're going to take a little bit longer today to talk about the Melbourne Grand Prix because I was actually there. And it was also the first stop of the Williams fan zone in Melbourne. So myself and my friend Sasha, shout out to you, Sash, she came up and stayed with me, and we spent the entire week together and went to all of the things around Melbourne to do with the Melbourne Grand Prix. If you are a fellow Australian / Melburnian, you might have seen me on TV during the week of the Melbourne Grand Prix. The first time was on The Project on Channel 10, which Sasha and I went to the filming of, and a guy called, I don't know if you guys know him, you might have heard of him, Gunther Steiner was the guest. So we went in for the filming of that and got to see that, which was really, really cool. And I'm one of those people that, like, as soon as people say in any setting, oh, I need a volunteer, my hand goes straight up. We were at the filming of The Project and they were like, oh, we need a volunteer. I heard that part of it, didn't listen to the rest, heard the volunteer part and was like, oh yeah, I'll have a go. So they actually got me to do a live cross during the broadcast and read off a teleprompter and talk about Gunther and David Williams being on the show. I didn't know that part was live until afterwards when they like reiterated that to me, and I was like, oh, I was on TV. So that was really weird. And that was probably that was probably my favorite day of the Grand Prix as of Grand Prix week as well, because there was the Williams pop-up zone. Now the Williams pop-up is traveling around with them this year. It was in Japan. I don't think they're doing doing China. I don't actually remember where it is for the rest of the year, but they do this really cool thing where they set up this, they had a show car that they could have used the chassis on so Logan could have raced. But basically you went down and lined up in the morning, and from 11 a.m. they handed out wristbands. Their wristbands looked like this. I do have another one. It's in my bedroom. I'm not in my bedroom, but it is in there. So they had these lovely wristbands. So there was this pink one that says Alex. There was this silver one that says Williams, and then the one for Logan's meet and greet was white. That's in my bedroom. So Sasha and I went down. We got there at about 9 o'clock in the morning. She had come from an overnight train from Sydney, so she was exhausted. But it was an awesome day. We went down to this meet and greet, and we got to meet Alex. We got photos with Alex. This is my photo with Alex. Look at that face. It's actually a really good photo journey of Alex and I, because I asked him if his jaw or his cheeks hurt more from these photos, from having to smile all the time, and he was telling me the story about how his face is like used to smiling all the time, and it's a really good photo story. I will post it on my Instagram again at some point, and it's like the story of him telling me this story, and then the two of us standing next to each other getting this photo taken. He's really tall. And the other part of that was the Williams Academy drivers, which was, now I talk about this young man a lot on my Twitch, so if you follow me on Twitch, you will be familiar with this person. If you are a Team Redline supporter, you are also familiar with this person. Luke Browning, who is a Williams Academy driver, drives for High-Tech Pulse 8, High-Tech GP, I think they're called now, actually, in Formula 3. And then you've also got, as part of the Williams Academy in Formula 2, you have Franco Colapinto, who drives for MP Motorsport, teammate with Dennis Hauger, and you have Zach O'Sullivan. I can't remember what team Zach drives for. I apologise, but he is a Williams Academy driver. Let me do a quick little Google. Zach O'Sullivan. Who do you race for, Zachy? He drives for ART. So we got to meet those boys as well. I will also post this photo of us all standing together. Now, it took many tries to get this photo because Franco, and I think you can kind of see it, Franco and Zach were kind of clowning around, and me and Sash were just like, come on, guys. And then Luke and I were like standing next to each other. But as part of that, we got these driver cards. So I got this sign. So you have Zach O'Sullivan, and it's really cool because it's got like information about them on the back of these cards, and then like how to follow them on socials and like their journeys and stuff, which is really, really cool. And then you've got Luke Browning. Look at that guy with his Justin Bieber hair. And then day 2 for us was, so we met Alex, Franco, Zach, and Luke the same day we did the Steiner meetup, filming. And on the way home from that, walking to the train station, I saw this guy walking towards us that looked really familiar, and I was like, oh my god, hi Ted! And we met Ted Kravitz too. And we got our photos with Ted Kravitz. Now, he was really, really jet lagged. And we had a little funny interaction with him, but he was so nice to us. So thank you so much, Ted. We really appreciate that. And it was really, really cool to like meet him and chat with him, and he stopped and had a chat with us, and he absolutely didn't have to, but the fact that he did meant the world to us. And we got to meet this guy that day. We got to meet Logan. Look at that guy. Look at that sweet little baby. Look at that dude. I do love Logan. He's a sweetheart. Hence why I was so heartbroken for him at the Grand Prix. We know how well that ended for Logan. Thanks, Williams. And then we rushed across to the city to try and meet this lovely little kid by the name of Oscar Piastri. We unfortunately missed out on meeting Oscar by about 10 people. And that is where you would have seen me on Channel 7 News potentially, because I was talking about how the meet and greet for Oscar was so poorly organised. Now, they talked to me and about 6 other girls, and they spoke to us for, I think they were probably talking to us for about 5 minutes. And for this news story, fuck you, Channel 7, they literally used like 3 seconds. Literally 3 seconds. Of me saying that it was really unfortunate that it was so badly organised. And if we had have known we were going to stand in line for nearly 3 hours and then not get to meet him, we would have done something else for our day. But we had talked about the fact that we were so grateful to Oscar and to McLaren for doing this meet and greet when they didn't have to, but they did, and that meant so much to us that they tried and that they did get through so many people. We were just a little bit upset that we missed out. But it was nobody's fault. We weren't holding anyone accountable, and we weren't blaming anybody. We were just expressing the fact that we were upset. But you know what news channels are like, and they like to take everything out of context, so they did. And yeah, so I also made a flag for Mr. Luke Browning that said "Go Browning" on it, that I was sequining and sitting and sewing for nearly 4 days. It took me about 20 hours or so, and it was like over 1,000 sequins. Saturday morning at the Grand Prix, it went missing. But Friday, I had it wrapped around my shoulders, walking around at the Grand Prix, and everyone was like, oh, who's Browning? Who is this guy? So I got to tell every single person that asked me about my flag who Luke Browning was, and talk about high tech, and talk about F3, and talk about the fact that he won the Macau Grand Prix last year. And I spread the good word about Luke Browning, so shout out to you, Luke. I cannot wait to see you in F2 and then F1, because you are freaking amazing. We have the privilege in Melbourne of getting the F3 and the F2 races as well as the F1 races, so it was really cool to see. We had the best weekend. Sunday was probably the most nerve-wracking day of my life. Being a Ferrari fan and being a Charles fan, I kind of wish that it had have gone the other way and Charles had have won and Carlos was P2, but that's just me being picky because I like Charles. I do like Carlos as well. I was so happy for him. It's nice to see that the guy that won the race last year that wasn't a Red Bull has also won a race this year and not in a Red Bull. And he doesn't have a contract for next year, and it's kind of like a screw you to Ferrari. And I love this for Carlos. He's in his villain era and just like slay, baby. Go Carlos. And it was actually a really, really good race, but we were so nervous the entire time. Me with my Ferrari gear, her with her McLaren gear. She is more of an Oscar fan, but that's because she's Aussie like I am. We both love Oscar and we both love Lando. But we were so happy to see Lando on the podium and Oscar P4. It obviously did suck that it was Oscar's home race and he was given team orders to let his teammate by. But in the end, kind of the strategy, the way that it was going, Lando probably would have overtaken him anyway. But it was a freaking awesome race. Luke had a little bit of bad luck over the weekend for the F3 races. In the sprint race, his car just like failed him and didn't do as well as he should have, as he could have, sorry. And then he did really, really well in the feature race. Dennis Hauger also had some really unfortunate luck during the F2 race and DNF'd, and I was absolutely shattered for him because I love Dennis. But In the F3 race, we also got to see the little baby Dino Beganovic, first season in Formula 3, and he won the race. And I was so happy for him. So go Dino. And the F2 race was just amazing. We are so lucky to get everything in Melbourne. We get the F3s, the F2s, the F1s. We have the famous Melbourne Walk. We didn't do the Melbourne Walk because it is absolutely insanity down there. And we also have the fan forum Q&A, which was so cool. If you haven't seen it yet, I will link it below. You need to watch the one that they did with Yuki, Logan, Daniel, and Alex, because it was Alex's birthday the day after, but it was chaos. But obviously we can't talk about Melbourne and not talk about what happened with Logan and with Alex. Now, as I said before, Formula One is a team sport. If you are a team principal like James Vowles, you obviously have to do, I'm very Italian there, you obviously have to do what you think is the right thing to do for the team. And I completely understand why, even though Alex crashed and ruined his car and they didn't have a spare, I understand why they gave him Logan's car and let him do the race. However, from practice on Friday, because they didn't make it to Saturday because they didn't have the second chassis, Logan was doing better times than Alex. He potentially could have done better than P11 like Alex did. He might have. We never know, and we're never gonna know. And like I said, I get it. It just sucks. So that's just how it happened, and that's how it happened. And sometimes shit happens, and it's just how it is. But there were, 3 massive DNFs in the Grand Prix in Melbourne. First of all, the main one being Max. Now, I understand that people don't like him, but people cheering just for the sake of cheering Max not finishing just breaks my heart. Like, I'm very active online, as you guys know. Well, you might not know, but now you do. I'm very active online, and I have been a part of the Team Redline community for a year now. It was actually my 1-year anniversary of subscribing to them yesterday. And in the Redline streams, you actually get to see the Max side of Max that you don't see with racing. And he just seems like the nicest guy. Like, Max seems so lovely. I've never heard anyone I've never seen anyone say anything bad about him. I've never heard anyone say anything bad about him in the Redline streams, which obviously they wouldn't if you're familiar with Team Redline. But I hate this kind of reputation that the media sort of portrays about Max being this horrible person, because I just don't think that that's true. And being a part of the Redline community, obviously I see how different he is in streams and what he's really like. Well, I don't know if it's what he's really like, but it's the way that he presents himself online. And he seems like a really cool guy, and he's so funny. I think he's very funny. So just to see people cheering just because he DNF'd, it kind of sucks. Like, any driver, you don't ever want something bad to happen to a driver. But sometimes shit happens. Obviously, shit happened with Max's car, shit happened with Lewis's car, and shit happened with George. Now, I know Alonso was penalised for the George thing. I don't think it was his fault, but anyway. It was quite scary seeing the onboard footage afterwards, because I came home and watched the race again, because I was there. I was in between turns 8 and 9. So you don't see everything. We didn't have a screen in front of us, so we saw the stuff that happened near us. Lewis DNF'd a little bit further down from us, and we saw Max's car starting to catch fire. And oh my god, when cars are on fire like that, they smell so bad. It was disgusting. Just the smell. Ugh. Thinking about it makes me really uncomfortable because it was so gross. But yeah, and then the thing with George, we saw it afterwards, and it was really, really scary, and everybody saw how close Lance was to kind of colliding with George. I do kind of agree that it probably should have been red flagged, and they should have just ended the race there. There was only 1 lap to go anyway, so they wouldn't have lost anything by red flagging it, although we remember what happened last year when they red flagged and then did a lap. Let's just not go there. But it was quite scary to see, and I'm so glad that George was okay. And it was good that he was okay and that everybody avoided crashing into him. And now we finally come to Japan. We caught up, you guys. We are on the final leg. So Max P1, Checo P2, Carlos P3, Charles P4. Now, I turned the race off before the end because of the team orders from Ferrari. But also, Charles put on an absolute masterclass in tyre management. I think I'm 99% sure he was the only driver that did a one-stop strategy, and the fact that he fought from P8 to P4 in the first place and was actually leading the race for a little bit, mind blown. Like, if you want to ever see a good lesson on tyre management and on tyre strategy, go and watch that race again and just see what Charles was doing, because he put on an absolute, like, masterclass of how to manage your tyres. The fact that he finished P4 with everything that was going on is just wow. Really, really proud of him. Well done, Charles. You deserved that P4. You deserved P3, but unfortunately it wasn't meant to be. Did only finish 6 seconds behind his teammate, though. I know it sounds like a lot, and it looked like a lot, but 6 seconds, not too bad. We had a bunch of DNFs again. We had the Zhou Guanyu DNF because they had to retire the car. That was just so sad. And then we had the Alex and Daniel moment. Now, I'm going to surprise some people here. It wasn't Alex's fault. It wasn't Daniel's fault. It was a racing incident. I don't know anyone that looks in their left mirror and their right mirror when they're driving at normal speeds at the same time, let alone driving as fast as an F1 car does. It wasn't Alex's fault. It wasn't Daniel's fault. It was just a racing incident. It was shit. It happened. That's all it was. It was a racing incident. Wasn't Alex's fault for trying to overtake on the outside. Wasn't Daniel's fault for trying to take the racing line. Wasn't Lance's fault for being on the inside. All Daniel was trying to do was take the racing line and go around Lance. Alex was trying to come around this way. You can see in the footage, Alex tried to brake and just couldn't. And so what happened. Now, I have seen a lot of people online saying that it was Daniel's fault and Daniel's wash, blah, blah, blah. And then I've seen the Daniel Ricciardo, like, die-hard supporters. I love Daniel. I'm going to get a Daniel Ricciardo tattoo in a few weeks. I love Daniel, but I'm not going to turn around and start blaming Alex for everything. It was neither of their faults. And anyone that's saying otherwise needs to take a good hard look at themselves. And anyone that's saying anything horrible, you need to take anything hard look at yourself. Shit happens, okay? It was a racing incident. Nobody's fault. Logan was having a brilliant, fantastic, amazing race, and then he had his little moment. Wasn't necessarily his fault either, like, it was the tyres, and it was just, I think Logan's still getting his confidence back after everything that happened in Melbourne, and I don't blame him. I can't even begin to imagine how hard that would be, you know, being told that you have to give your car to your teammate because he's better than you, and Logan's already had it rough enough this year. And I think it's only going to get worse for him. I don't think that he is going to get his contract renewed looking at the way that he has been this year. And that sucks because a lot of the things that have happened to Logan haven't necessarily been his fault. Some of them have, some of them haven't. I really, really hope it is only race 4. I really, really hope that Logan improves during the season and proves to everybody, not that he needs to, but proves why he has that seat and that he deserves that seat, because I really think he does. I think he just needs a little bit more time to reacquaint himself with his confidence, first of all, and reacquaint himself with the car. Hopefully that's what we're going to see happen in the next couple of races. I've really got my fingers crossed. I really want to see Logan do well. He deserves it so much. Speaking of people that have been doing really well again, the Hasses this year are something else. They really are something else. I'm interested to see what this sprint weekend brings. Nico has had some brilliant qualifying sessions, so I'm interested to see what a sprint weekend does in China this weekend by the time this video goes out. But China on the weekend is going to be interesting because we haven't been there for a long time. We haven't been there with these new regulations and these new types of cars, so it's going to be interesting. And also it's the new sprint qualifying format where sprint quali is on the Friday, and then F1, the main race quali is on Saturday, and then the sprint race on Saturday. I don't remember. I will talk about it after the fact. And also massive shout out to Yuki for being the first Japanese driver since 2012, I think it was, to get a point, get points of any kind in a home race in Japan. So hell yeah, Yuki, P10, well earned, well deserved. That is it from me. We have caught up on all 4 races. I apologize again that it has been so long in between videos. I have just been so busy. My life is a little bit hectic at the moment, but things are starting to calm down and we should get back to normal. I am going to try and record after every race from now on. I can't guarantee that is going to happen. I'm going to do my absolute best. Now, if you don't follow me on all the other social platforms, please come hang out with me. You guys know that I am the Aussie Grid Girl on YouTube. What you don't know is that is also my Instagram and my TikTok handle. So come hang out with me on Instagram and TikTok and on YouTube if you're listening instead of watching. It is the Aussie Grid Girl, capital T, capital A, capital G, all one word. Come hang out with me there. My Twitter, I'm still going to call it Twitter. My Twitter handle is Kelsey_139. And my profile picture, I have like a beach hat on and like a glass of wine in my hand in a spa. Because that's just what my life is like sometimes. Not all the time. Sometimes. I couldn't handle being in a spa all the time. It would probably drive me crazy. But yeah, that is it from me for this week. I look forward to chatting to you guys next time. Please interact with this video if you see it. If you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Never said that before, but I'm going to say it now. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I stream on Twitch 3 nights a week usually. It's Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. Did a bonus Wednesday stream last night. I sometimes do week streams. It just depends on what my schedule looks like. But I stream usually Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Won't be streaming Sunday next week, which is the week this video is going out, because it's Grand Prix day. I think the race starts at like 5 p.m. for me. So I might stream after it. We'll see. But you can come hang out with me on Twitch as well. My handle is Kelsey_the Caffeine Queen. Was going to change it to the Aussie Grid Girl, but I'm kind of the Caffeine Queen now. And have been the Caffeine Queen on Twitch for a little while. And that's what people recognize me as. So I'm going to have to keep it. So yeah, that is it for this week. Thank you guys so much for coming to hang out with me. Hello, welcome if you're new. Thank you to those of you that do watch all of my videos and listen to all the episodes. I really appreciate you. And I will see you next time. Hope you guys have a good week, and we will talk after China. Bye!